Chapter 2857. With Bewitching's voice falling, Xia Jiqing and the others were all startled, and couldn't help but open their mouths wide. Then, a touch of excitement quickly climbed up everyone's faces. Really? You are going to get married? Bewitching nodded. How can this kind of thing be a joke? Bailey Hongzhuang also smiled and gave everyone a positive answer. Yes, we came back this time to prepare for the wedding. You have been together for so many years, it's time to get married. Xia Jiqing smiled. This is really a happy event. Dongfang Yu smiled and walked to Bewitching's side, patted him on the shoulder and laughed. Brother, you have waited for the clouds to open and the moon to see the moon. Among all of them, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching had experienced the most. Since before Kanglin College, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching had already been together. Now they had been in Tiangang's sect for more than a year, and the two of them were finally going to tie the knot. Speaking of which, you have already been married once when you were in Fengbo country. Is this considered a second marriage, haha? Bai Junyu couldn't help but laugh. However, when Xia Jiqing's eyes swept over, Bai Junyu had consciously put away his smile. I've mistreated Hongzhuang during the previous wedding. I can't let anything go wrong with the wedding this time. Bewitching's deep eyes flashed with a bright and firm luster. He would never let his woman suffer the slightest grievance. Hongzhuang deserved the best of everything. Looking at Bewitching's affectionate appearance, Xia Jiqing, Lu Qingyue, and Yuan Xiaoman couldn't help but feel envious. The feelings that Bewitching inadvertently revealed were often the most sincere. Hongzhuang really found a good man, and any woman would be envious. Such an important thing naturally requires our participation. Young sect master, you can rest assured that as long as you ask us to do something, we will definitely do it one by one. There will be absolutely no mistakes. Xia Jiqing patted her chest, with a look of assurance on her face. Hongzhuang is my best sister. If you want to treat her badly, you have to see if we agree or not. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and blinked. It's great that you have time to help me prepare. This way, you will have experience in the future. Hearing this, Xia Jiqing and the others couldn't help but be stunned. And couldn't help blushing. Hongzhuang. Xiao He jumped in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and said, Master is right. Anyway, you will get married sooner or later. It's better to prepare early. The eyes of Dongfang Yu and the others couldn't help but fall on Bai Junyu. Junyu, in addition to Hongzhuang, the first to get married should be you and Jiqing. You have a lot of pressure on you, so you have to prepare well. Bai Junyu didn't expect that this problem would suddenly involve him. He couldn't help but subconsciously look at Xia Jiqing. Xia Jiqing, who was already very embarrassed, couldn't help but shout after noticing Bai Junyu's gaze. What are you looking at me for? At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had already laughed. Bai Junyu and Xia Jiqing were the most lively couple. When they got married in the future, it would be very lively. Chapter 2858. Don't just talk about me. Why don't you talk about Xiaoqing? In comparison, it should be Xiaoqing who is more worrying. Bai Junyu raised his eyebrows and looked at Gong Xiaoqing and Lu Qingyue. These two guys actually had the nerve to laugh at him? As soon as these words came out, the smiles on Gong Xiaoqing and Lu Qingyue's faces also stopped. Junyu is right. Both of you have to study and prepare well. In my opinion, it shouldn't be long before you get married, right? Dongfang Yu's peach blossom eyes were slightly raised, and he said with a smile, This time when you go home, you can see your parents properly. As for this wedding wine, I won't be tired no matter how far it is. Bewitching nodded. Dongfang's words are right. This kind of good thing, we will definitely support it. Hongzhuang, Dongfang doesn't have a partner and can't be controlled. Why don't you take care of your Bewitching? Xia Jiqing's face was full of shame, and her cheeks were already red. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled, a hint of playfulness in her eyes. What Bewitching said isn't wrong. This is our second marriage, so we're already familiar with it. You'll be getting married soon, so naturally you'll need to learn more. Ha ha. The laughter continued to spread in the bedroom, and everyone laughed together, as if they had returned to their days at the Tsonglan College. All the identities and gaps had disappeared. The only thing that remained unchanged was the friendship between them. For this banquet, Bewitching also prepared a very rich wine and dishes. Everyone was drunk and had a great time. The next day, Bewitching had already begun to prepare for the wedding. He specifically asked the 4 palace masters and the elders to understand what needed to be prepared. However, because the transmission array had not been built yet, no one knew how long it would take to build it. So the auspicious day had not been chosen for the time being. There was still plenty of time. Compared to Bewitching, who was busy preparing for the wedding, Bailey Hongzhuang was much more relaxed. During this period of time, Bailey Hongzhuang had been busy and did not have enough time to rest. Bewitching felt sorry for her, so he told her not to interfere with anything and just to relax. Therefore, Bailey Hongzhuang cultivated with Xia Jiqing and others every day, and sometimes went to the vicinity of Tiangang sect to play, which was very comfortable. This period of time was probably the most relaxing period of time for Bailey Hongzhuang since she had transmigrated. Since Bailey Hongzhuang's identity as the Miss of Tiangang sect was known by everyone, Bailey Hongzhuang would be saluted by disciples no matter where she went. All the previous doubts and speculations had completely disappeared. She sometimes cultivated, and sometimes went to the alchemy palace to refine pills. Among all the palace halls, the disciples of the alchemy palace were the most convinced by Bailey Hongzhuang. After all, Bailey Hongzhuang had used her alchemy skills to conquer all the disciples of the alchemy palace. Half a month later, Situ Yan and Mu Jin's returned to Tiangang sect together. And this news caused a sensation in Tiangang sect again. After knowing that Bailey Hongzhuang was Situ Yan's granddaughter, everyone in Tiangang sect already knew that the Sun Moon Palace Master was Situ Yan's wife. However, no one had ever seen the Sun Moon Palace's Palace Master, so no one knew anything about the past. Chapter 2859. Not for anything else, but because Situ Yan and Mu Jinsei looked too young. Oh my god, Sect Master and Madam Sect Master are too young, right? When I saw Sect Master before, he didn't look like this. Maybe after cultivating to the Sect Master's level, he can return to his youth. The reason why we chose the path of cultivation, isn't it to live longer? Looking at it this way, Madam Sect Master and young Miss look very similar. After seeing Mu Jinsei's appearance, Xia Jiqing and the others also understood the meaning of Bailey Hongzhuang's words. No wonder Sect Master could recognize Bailey Hongzhuang when he saw her. Although Madam Sect Master is very beautiful, I think Hongzhuang is the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. Xia Jiqing's eyes were bright. When Hongzhuang gets married, she will definitely be the most beautiful bride in the world. Yuan Xiaoman nodded. That's natural. Before seeing Boss, I didn't think there would be such a beautiful woman. But Boss and young Sect Master together are really not an ordinary match. Bewitching and Bailey Hongzhuang quickly greeted them, their faces full of smiles. Grandfather, grandmother, you are here. Master, Madam Sect Master. Bewitching bowed and said. Situ Yan smiled slightly. We came here after building the transmission array of the Sun Moon Palace. Your grandfather will take care of the rest of the transmission arrays one by one. We have to come back first to arrange the Tiangang sect. After all, this was the place where the wedding would take place. Yixuan, your parents and master's wife are preparing your dowry and wedding clothes in the Lan family. I have to come to the Tiangang sect to accompany you to decorate the new house. You can stay in the Tiangang sect first. After we have dealt with the matters here, it won't be too late for you to return to the Lan family. Mu Jinsei said with a smile. At this moment, hearing such words again, Bailey Hongzhuang no longer blushed and immediately nodded with a smile. Then I will have to trouble grandfather and grandmother. Silly girl. Being able to see you get married is already the happiest thing for us. How can it be considered troublesome? Mu Jin's eyes were gentle as she held onto Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. Thinking back to when your mother got married, I felt the same way. But at that time, I could only attend as her master. It was always a pity. But this time, seeing you get married, I have no regrets. When she said this, Mu Jinsei couldn't help but glare at Situ Yan. If it wasn't for this old man, how could she have caused such regret? Situ Yan also knew that he had let Mu Jinsei down. So when Mu Jinsei mentioned this matter, he couldn't help but feel guilty and embarrassed. What happened back then was all my fault, please forgive me. Easy for you to say. Is a word of forgiveness enough to make up for all the years of suffering I've suffered? I can't. I can't. Sitian quickly nodded. Whatever you say. I'll use the rest of my life to make amends. Humph. Mujins coldly snorted and turned her head away. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other, and couldn't help but smile. Who would have thought that the famous Tiangang sect master would be eaten so easily? Chapter 2860. Mu Jinsei walked around Di Beichen's palace, and made a decision without hesitation. To tear it down and rebuild it. Grandmother, this palace is still very new, and the decorations inside are not bad. There's no need to tear it down and rebuild it, right? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes revealed a trace of surprise. She felt that the decorations here were not bad, and only needed to add a few more things. How can that be? Mu Jinsei shook her head. Since it's a marriage, naturally everything must be new. What do you think? Mu Jinsei looked at Si Tuyen and Di Beichen. In the next second, Si Tuyen and Di Beichen nodded their heads like chickens pecking rice and said firmly, "That's right, tear it down and rebuild it." In order to show that he completely followed Mu Jinsei's thoughts, Si Tuyen waved his hand and destroyed half of the palace. This is definitely not a new house. We'll find someone to redesign it, and design something that Hongzhuang would like. Si Tuyen said with a smile. Di Beichen put his arm around Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder and said, "Wife, when Xiren said that I'm a slave to my wife. However, I feel that compared to master, I still need to learn more." Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but chuckle, and hit Di Beichen's chest. "You actually dare to mock grandfather?" Di Beichen shook his head and said with a serious expression, "I'm not mocking you. I really need to learn from master. Master has always been my role model." In the following time, Bailey Hongzhuang also witnessed the speed of Di Beichen and the others. It only took them half an hour to tear down the entire palace, and Si Tuyen also found the craftsmen to rebuild it. Mu Jinsei had been discussing with Bailey Hongzhuang about the various arrangements of the sleeping quarters. After all, Bailey Hongzhuang had married Di Beichen, and was now Tiangang sect's young sect master's wife. Normally, she would spend more time in Tiangang sect. As Mu Jins, Bailey Hongzhuang, and Di Beichen discussed the appearance of the sleeping quarters, the craftsmen began to prepare. There were many people in Tiangang sect, so all of this was done very quickly. Not long after, Bailey Hongzhuang received news that Mu Lingbing and the others had arrived at Tiangang sect. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen went to welcome them, they saw Lan Yunxiao, Mu Lingbing, Yu Linfeng and Nangong Wu. "Father, mother, master, master's wife, you've all come. What a pleasant surprise." Bailey Hongzhuang was full of smiles, as she quickly went to greet them. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, Lan Yunxiao and the others all smiled at the same time. The transportation array from the Lan family to Tiangang sect has already been built. We just happened to take this opportunity to check if there are any problems with the array, before coming over to take a look. Lan Yunxiao smiled. "You've come at the right time." Mu Jins also slowly walked over. "We've already rebuilt the sleeping quarters for Yishuan and Beichen's wedding. You can go take a look and see what you think. Is there anything else that needs to be reorganized?" Hearing this, Lan Yunxiao and the others all nodded. "That's great. We'll go take a look at how you're doing. Hongzhuang, your mother and I personally made your wedding dress. We came this time to let you see if you're satisfied with it. We'll also let you try it on, and see if there's anything that needs to be changed." Chapter 2861. When a woman gets married, the wedding dress is the most important. Naturally, we have to prepare it for you. Mu Lingbing held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand, her eyes filled with love. "We're not very clear on what you like, so we've been discussing and making the wedding dress. Originally, we were going to come find you before the transportation array was completed. Now that it's finished, we immediately came over. Let's go take a look at the bedchamber first. We'll talk about other matters later." Nangong Wu smiled. In the end, under Lan Yunxiao and the others' comments, they added quite a few opinions. However, the matter of the bedchamber was finally resolved. With Tiangang sect's craftsmen's speed, it wouldn't take long for them to finish repairing it. That night, Lan Yunxiao and the others were drinking to their heart's content, while Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were trying on the wedding dress in the room. Looking at the bright red wedding dress, Bailey Hongzhuang gently rubbed her right hand. Her mother had specially made every stitch for her, and it was filled with motherly love. The instant Bailey Hongzhuang tried on the wedding dress, Mu Jinse, Mu Lingbing, and Nangong Wu were all stunned. Her skin was as white as snow and sparkling like jade. Paired with the bright red wedding dress, Bailey Hongzhuang appeared even more noble and otherworldly. There wasn't the slightest bit of vulgarity, but it added a bit of charm to her original temperament. Even though they were all women, the three of them couldn't help but feel suffocated when they saw Bailey Hongzhuang. She was truly too beautiful. This is truly the most beautiful bride I've ever seen. Nangong Wu's face could not hide the amazement on her face. Even though she had already thought that with Bailey Hongzhuang's outstanding appearance, she would definitely be very beautiful when she wore the wedding dress, but when she really saw it, she still felt that this beauty was beyond their imagination. Mu Jinse and Mu Lingbing also stared blankly at Bailey Hongzhuang with unconcealable joy and adoration in their eyes. Yixuan, you're truly mother's pride. Mu Lingbing couldn't stop smiling. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang like this, as a mother, she felt an indescribable sense of pride. Bewitching has really picked up a treasure. Mu Jinse sighed. If he dares to mistreat Yixian in the future, I will skin him alive. When he said that, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two could not help but laugh. In detail, Bailey Hongzhuang's current status was really extraordinary. If Bewitching dared to treat her badly, he would be attacked by everyone. The pressure was really not small. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Mu Jinse in front of her. With Mu Jinse's youthful appearance, it was hard to associate her with her grandmother. Mother, I have an idea. Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Mu Lingbing. She had discussed this with Bewitching before coming up with this idea. What thoughts? Chapter 2862. Mu Jinse clearly hadn't expected Bailey Hongzhuang to make such a suggestion. She couldn't help but stare blankly as she hurriedly waved her hands and said, I'm already so old. If I were to get married at this time, wouldn't I become a laughingstock? How would this become a laughingstock? Mu Lingbing hurriedly interjected. The sect master of the Heavenly Dipper sect and the palace master of the Sun Moon Palace are getting married. This is an extremely sensational matter. Furthermore, with your and father's looks, there's nothing wrong with it at all. Lingbing is right. Otherwise, Auntie wouldn't have followed Uncle without any status. Nangong Wu quickly added. The lifespan of a cultivator was much longer than that of an ordinary person. Although there weren't many people who got married at Mu Jinse's age, there were still quite a number of them. It wasn't strange at all. Mu Jinse waved her hands. No way. If this were to spread, we would definitely become a laughingstock. My and Situ's daughter is already so old. Now that our granddaughter is about to get married, how could we not become a laughingstock if the two of us get involved? Mother, the reason why you and father have missed each other for so many years is all because of Yixiqing. If it wasn't for her, the two of you would have gotten married 40 years ago. Now that everything has changed, why should we care about what others think? As long as we're happy, it's fine. Furthermore, with our current status and position, who would dare laugh at us? Mu Lingbing turned around to look at Bailey Hongzhuang and said, Yixuan, you're so considerate. We've actually forgotten such an important matter. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. Grandmother, I think our suggestion is very good. Don't worry about anything else. This is a wedding that should belong to you and grandfather. It's just that we've come a little too late. Don't say any more. I won't agree. Mu Jinse's attitude was firm. I'm already so old now and I don't care about such things anymore. I know you're doing this for our own good, but there's really no need for this matter. Just as Mu Jinse finished speaking, Situ Yan's voice rang out from outside the room. Who said there's no need? I said there's a need. As soon as he said this, Mu Jinse's expression couldn't help but change. Then the door was opened. Si Tuyen, Lan Yunxiao, Yu Linfeng, and Bewitching walked in together. Bewitching gave Bailey Hongzhuang a meaningful glance, and Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood. They had already discussed it earlier, and decided to bring it up today. Therefore, when Bailey Hongzhuang suggested it, Bewitching also voiced his idea. Situ, what nonsense are you spouting? Mu Jinsei frowned as a trace of annoyance appeared on her face. I'm sorry for what happened in the past. I've made you suffer for so many years. Now that we are together, this wedding is naturally necessary. Beichen can't wrong Hong Zhuang, but how can I wrong you? Following Situ Yan's words, Bailey Hong Zhuang and the rest couldn't help but give him a thumbs up in their hearts. This was a real man. You shameless old man. Our granddaughter is about to get married. With our seniority, why are we blindly meddling here? How can this be considered meddling? At most, it's adding joy to joy. Situ Yan looked at everyone. Don't you all agree? Yes. Bailey Hong Zhuang and the rest replied. Chapter 2863. I can't be bothered with you. Even if you don't want your old face, I still want mine. Mu Jinsei's stubborn expression did not change. Although she had fantasized about marriage many times when she was young, as she grew older, she gradually let go of the idea. Now whether it was her or Situ Yan, they were both 60 years old. Even if their appearances did not show it, those who knew them would know. If this suggestion was brought up on a normal day, it would be fine. But now Bailey Hong Zhuang and Bewitching were about to get married. As maternal grandparents, they were the elders. Once this news spread, everyone would think that they were shameless and wanted to get married before their granddaughter. Most importantly, wouldn't this mean that everyone in the world would know that they had given birth to a child without any status? This was not something she wanted to see. Seeing Mu Jinsei's stubborn appearance, Situ Yan also sighed. Although he and Mu Jinsei had been separated for so many years because of a misunderstanding, he understood Mu Jinsei's personality very well, whether it was from his past memories or today's interactions. You care too much about what other people think. At that time he was indeed ignorant. He did not even know who the person he was with was. But if Mu Jinsei's personality had been a little stronger and more honest, they would not have been taken advantage of by Wuxia and missed for so many years. If only Mu Jinsei had a little more confidence in herself, as long as she had let him know the slightest bit of news, they would have been able to reunite sooner. Hearing Situ Yan's words, Mu Jinsei's expression changed a little. But she remained stubborn. So what? How can a person not care about what other people think when they live in this world? If you didn't feel guilty towards Wuxia, would you have treated me like that? Hearing this, Situ Yan's eyes darkened. That's right. A person living in this world cannot do as they please. There are many things that need to be considered. When Bailey Hong Zhuang and the others saw that Situ Yan and Mu Jinsei had a conflict because of this matter, they could not help but frown. This was not what they wanted to see. After all, the knot in her heart for so many years could not be completely untied in a short period of time. Sometimes, it would erupt, but they believed that as they spent more time together, the resentment in Mu Jinsei's heart would gradually dissipate. At the very least, it was undoubtedly much better than when they had first met at Sun Moon Palace. Mother, why are you bringing this up all of a sudden? Mu Lingbing sat down beside Mu Jinsei. Isn't father saying this because he doesn't want to treat you unfairly? You should be happy. The originally tense atmosphere gradually eased with Mu Lingbing's words, and Mu Jinsei clearly felt that the words she had just blurted out were not appropriate. She couldn't help but say, I understand that you all have good intentions, but we cannot wash our dirty linen in public. I do not wish for the matter of the past to be known by the world. As Mu Jinsei's voice fell, everyone understood her concerns. To a man, this was not a problem. However, to a woman, this was something she was absolutely unwilling to accept. Chapter 2864. Everyone's eyes lit up when they heard this. This was undoubtedly the best way to compromise. As long as her family was present, Mu Jins didn't need to worry about this news being spread. Being able to fulfill her previous regrets was undoubtedly the best outcome. Mu Jins, who was originally resolute, hesitated after hearing Bewitching's words, but she didn't immediately refuse. Seeing the change in Mu Jins' expression, Sitian understood a little. Which woman wouldn't want a wedding? Just this matter alone was enough for him to treat Mu Jins unfairly. Bailey Hong Zhuang and the rest looked at each other. It seemed like there was a chance. It's getting late. You must be tired from rushing all the way here. Why don't you go back and rest early? Tian quietly gave everyone a look. They immediately understood and nodded. We are indeed a little tired. Then we'll go back and rest first. Zhuang, let's send father-in-law and mother-in-law back to their residence. Okay. Bailey Zhuang and the rest quickly left the room, leaving only Tian and Mu Jin's in the room. Grandmother has already agreed. With grandfather's ability, it shouldn't be a problem to convince grandmother, right? Bailey Zhuang raised her brows and looked at Bewitching. Bewitching's beautiful thin lips hooked up, his handsome face filled with a sunny smile. Back then, there were countless women who liked Master. It can be seen from how Master's wife liked Master for so many years without letting go. Although Master usually acts like a slave to his wife, it definitely won't be a problem to convince Master's wife. Don't worry. Lan Yunxiao turned to Bailey Zhuang behind him. Yixuan, you don't need to worry about this matter. You only need to think about how to handle your grandfather and grandmother's wedding. Hearing this, Mu Lingbing chuckled. Don't look at how your grandmother keeps saying that she's not young anymore. In fact, her heart is still the same as before. There hasn't been any change. In that case, everyone can't leave Tiangang sect for a while. We have to finish this matter first. Bailey Zhuang smiled. Her dark and clear eyes were filled with a bright and warm smile. If her grandfather and grandmother could hold a wedding, they would be a legitimate couple in the future. Their relationship would undoubtedly be more harmonious. That's right. Fortunately, we don't have anything to do right now. We only need to prepare for your two weddings. Lan Yunxiao's smile was bright and bright. His originally elegant and graceful face now had a trace of warmth. Linfeng, I think we need to make a trip back to Limitless Palace. Nangong Wu suddenly said. Yu Linfeng raised his eyebrows and looked at Nangong Wu, silently asking for the reason. With our relationship with Zhuang, Lingbing, and the others, we will often visit Tiangang sect and Long clan. Wouldn't it be troublesome if we don't build a teleportation array? Let's take advantage of this opportunity to build a teleportation array. It will be much more convenient in the future. Nangong's words are correct. I originally wanted to tell you about this matter, but I was thinking about the wedding and forgot about it. Mu Lingbing nodded. Chapter 2865. If that's the case, then we'll be completely connected in the future. Yu Linfeng laughed despite himself. Lan Yunxiao placed a hand on Yu Linfeng's shoulder. What? You're not willing? I'm willing. How could I not be willing? The next day, everything went as everyone expected. Tian directly informed everyone that he and Mu Jin's would be holding an internal wedding in Tiangang sect. Very few people would be attending, and only their own family would be present. Mu Jin's didn't come out. She was clearly embarrassed by this matter. Bewitching, Zhuang, I'll have to trouble you to postpone your wedding a little, Tian slowly said. Bailey Zhuang and Bewitching quickly waved their hands. Grandfather, what are you saying? Master, according to the order of first come, first served, it should be you and Master's wife who get married first. Bewitching's eyes were filled with a hint of a playful smile. They did not dare to overtake him. You stinking brat, you even dare to laugh at your master now. Master, I'm happy for you. Bewitching chuckled, but his eyes were filled with sincerity. In the past, he often felt that his master was unhappy. For so many years, no one else had been by his master's side. His master had raised him since he was young, so he had long regarded his master as his grandfather. Ever since Zhuang's identity was revealed, this was the first time he saw his master so happy. This kind of life was what his master truly wanted. Tian's gaze softened. He had watched Bewitching grow up, so how could he not be clear about Bewitching's thoughts? In the future, we master and disciple must live well. We're a real family now. Bewitching nodded and chuckled. It seems that when master adopted me, it was also fated. Seeing Bewitching like this, Tian's gaze couldn't help but gradually change. A trace of emotion appeared in the depths of his eyes. When he first found Bewitching, he discovered that this child's constitution was extremely good. As long as he cultivated well, he would definitely become a great talent in the future. Not only that, when he was young, Bewitching's appearance was already extremely outstanding. Anyone who saw him would like him. He really couldn't understand why Bewitching's parents would abandon him. The place he found Bewitching wasn't in the secular world. Logically speaking, Dee's parents were also talented cultivators. Even if there was a reason why he couldn't raise such an excellent child, there would definitely be people who would be willing to accept him as a disciple if he were to hand him over to other forces. Why would they choose to abandon him? He really couldn't understand it. Over the years, although he had inquired around the area many times, he had not received any news. If at Bewitching's wedding, his parents could also come to attend, then there would be no regrets. What a pity. Nangongwu and Yu Linfeng took the lead to return to Limitless Palace to arrange the construction of the transportation array. Bailey Hongzhuang and Mu Lingbing began to prepare Mu Jin's wedding dress. These seemingly tedious matters were extremely joyful when they were doing them. Happiness comes after suffering. This was the feeling. Bewitching, Lan Yunxiao, and Si Tian were in charge of arranging and purchasing. Of course, they mainly listened to Mu Lingbing and the other two's instructions. They were happy every day. Chapter 2866. Today was the day of Si Tian and Mu Jin's wedding. Even in Tiangang sect, other than the 5 palace masters and a few elders, no one else knew about this matter. Everything was done according to Mu Jin's idea. It was simple but exquisite, and every decoration revealed a bit of warmth. Sect Master, after so many years, we finally see that you have a place to settle down. In the past, we were always worried that you would die alone, but now it seems that our worries were unnecessary. Qin Ai's face was full of smiles. Although he and Si Tian usually had the relationship of a palace master and sect master, they were also very good friends in private. Haha, isn't that so? Gu Jingqing laughed loudly. Actually, sect master has always been ahead of us. Now that you have so many children and grandchildren, how could you possibly die alone? You really hit it too well. Yan Kaiqing and Qi Yinghan also sighed. Sect master, you hid it from us too bitterly. We must get back at you for this. Today we must get you drunk. Si Tian was wearing a bright red wedding robe. His young face was handsome and determined. Listening to Yan Kaiqing and the others, the smile on his face deepened. Haha, with your alcohol tolerance, you want to get me drunk? Ah, sect master is looking down on the few of us. Qi Yinghan's face stiffened. Just based on these words, we have to fight for our dignity tonight. Looking at the elders at this moment, the smiles on Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' faces couldn't help but deepen. They could all see that the palace masters and elders were sincerely happy for Si Tian. As good brothers, they had advised Si Tian many times over the years, hoping that he could find a partner so that he wouldn't be lonely in the future. However, later on, they also knew that it wasn't that Si Tian was unwilling to find a partner, but that he already had someone in his heart. Now that Si Tian had finally found the person he had been waiting for, how could everyone not be happy for him? Gu Jinghe looked at the harmonious scene in front of her, and the smile on her face never disappeared. Mu Jin's many years of waiting and sacrifice had not been in vain. Looking at Mu Jin's family in front of her, and thinking about Mu Jin's lonely life, Gu Jinghe felt very touched. While smiling brightly, her eyes could not help but tear up. In-law, congratulations to you today. Lan Hongtai smiled and congratulated. In the past, he didn't understand the situation between Si Tian and Mu Jinsei, but now he completely understood. He really didn't think that Yu Siqing's heart could be so vicious. Just because of her own feelings, she had harmed 3 generations of Mu Jinsei's family. Now that Si Tian and Mu Jinsei were able to tie the knot, this kind of relationship was not easy. In-law, I didn't expect you to have time to come today. Thank you very much, Si Tian said with a smile. How could I not come to such a joyous occasion? Lan Hongtai said with a smile. We'll be a family in the future. I hope we can keep in touch. Of course. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching looked at each other and said, I'll go in first to see if grandmother is ready. Today, she will definitely amaze everyone. Bewitching nodded. Usually, Master's wife is already the most beautiful person in Master's eyes. Today is naturally even more so. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and quickly walked into the bedroom. Si Tuyen was outside chatting with everyone. Chapter 2867. Not long after, Bailey Hongzhuang came out and smiled like a fairy. The bride is coming out. Everyone get ready. Once she said that, Si Tuyen and the others stopped talking and turned to look behind them. In the next second, Mu Jinsei, dressed in a bright red wedding dress, with a phoenix crown on her head and a bridal veil over her head, slowly appeared in front of everyone. The bright red wedding dress was extremely bright, with a phoenix pattern woven from golden thread printed on it. It was gorgeous and affectionate, and through the veil, one could faintly see Mu Jinsei's snow-white skin and bright and beautiful appearance. The moment he saw Mu Jinsei, Si Tuyen felt his heart tremble. Even though he could only vaguely see her face, the corners of his lips could not help but overflow with a smile. His hands under his robes faintly trembled. After waiting for so many years, he had finally waited for the day when Mu Jinsei would become his wife. For the sake of this day, he had endured so many disappointment and loneliness over the past few decades. But now, looking at Mu Jinsei, he felt that everything was enough. The sound of firecrackers had already started to ring outside the chambers. The bright red firecrackers were accompanied by a crisp sound as they congratulated Si Tuyen and Mu Jinsei. Sect Master, the madam has already come out. What are you still standing here in a daze for? If you want to look, you'll have plenty of chances tonight. Qin Ai looked at the dazed Si Tuyen and could not help but urge him. Once she said that, the smiles on Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' faces deepened. Although Si Tuyen and Mu Jinsei already had a child, the two of them were still like lovers who had just fallen in love. Everywhere was filled with sweetness. Under the bridal veil, Mu Jinsei could not help but smile. Thinking back, when she had just gotten together with Si Tuyen had also looked like a fool. After Qin Ai's reminder, Si Tuyen finally reacted and quickly walked to Mu Jinsei's side and held the latter's hand. Mu Jinsei's body stiffened for a moment before she relaxed and allowed Si Tuyen to lead her to the front. First, bow to the heavens and earth. Si Tuyen and Mu Jinsei turned around and bowed deeply to the heavens and earth outside. Second, bow to the elders. Although Si Tuyen and Mu Jinsei's parents were no longer around, this ceremony was still carried out. It was to let their parents in the underworld know that they had found their other halves, and there was no need to worry about them. Husband and wife bow to each other. Si Tuyen and Mu Jinsei stood face to face and bowed to each other. Gu Jinghe looked at Mu Jins, who was standing next to Si Tuyen, and the tears in her eyes finally flowed down. In the past, Mu Jinsei had suffered too much. Now that she had finally found happiness, she couldn't help but feel happy for her good friend. The faces of Qin Ai and the rest were also filled with emotions. Their relationship had gone through too many ups and downs. Now that they had finally tied the knot, it was truly gratifying. Mu Lingbing's eyes couldn't help but redden. This was her father and mother. Because of a misunderstanding, she had always thought that she was an orphan. Now that she saw her parents together, how could she not be moved? Lan Yinxiao reached out and pulled Mu Lingbing into his embrace, his eyes filled with comfort and understanding. He patted Mu Lingbing's shoulder. This is a joyous occasion. Mu Lingbing nodded, but she still could not control her tears. Chapter 2868. The ceremony is complete. The sound of firecrackers rang out once again. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others began to applaud as well. Their faces were filled with joyous smiles. They clapped until their hands hurt, but they did not feel anything. Haha, congratulations, congratulations. A good match is made in heaven. Even though the process of this wedding was very simple, it was very heartwarming. In everyone's eyes, this was a very meaningful ceremony. Si Tuyen held Mu Jin's hand tightly and wanted to send her back to her room. However, before he could take a step, Qin Ai and the others' voices rang out. Sect Master, we've agreed that we won't rest until we're drunk today. As long as you don't get us drunk, don't even think about running away. It's a rare opportunity like this. If we don't grab hold of it today, we won't have another chance in the future. Don't worry, the madam won't be able to run away. Gu Jingqing and the others burst into laughter. As good brothers, they wanted to share in Si Tuyen's joy. It would be a pity if they didn't make a scene on such a great day. Si Tuyen's footsteps paused when he heard Qin Ai and the others' words. A sense of helplessness appeared on his face as he said, "Wait here. I'll send my madam back to her room first. I'll make all of you drunk later. Then we'll be waiting. Don't take this opportunity to run away. Otherwise, we'll have to make a scene in the bridal chamber. Do as you see fit, haha." Lan Hongtai and the others chuckled as well. It looks like Qin Ai and the others have no intention of letting Si Tuyen off today. You old fellows, don't even think about running away after you've drunk too much. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Di Beichen and smiled. Beichen, have you prepared enough wine today? Di Beichen nodded and lowered his voice to speak into Bailey Hongzhuang's ear. Master had anticipated that the palace master and the others would not let go of this opportunity, so he had specially instructed me to prepare more strong wine. I've prepared enough wine. Even if they're all bulls, they'll be drunk. Strong liquor? Bailey Hongzhuang was flabbergasted. Based on the 5 hall masters' attitude, I'm afraid they definitely won't let grandfather off. This wine is even strong wine. Wouldn't that mean? Di Beichen waved his hand. You still don't understand master's drinking capacity. The reason why the palace lords are so strongly demanding today is because every time we drink, it is master who drinks all of them. They usually didn't want to talk about it because they felt it was too embarrassing. However, I had seen it several times, so I knew it clearly. Master told me to prepare strong wine so that we can drink them all down and deal with them as soon as possible. After all, today is such a joyous day, we can't keep being blocked outside. As he finished speaking, the narrowness in Di Beichen's eyes became more and more obvious. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but glare at Di Beichen. In her mind, she was secretly admiring her grandfather's wisdom. However, she didn't expect her grandfather's capacity for liquor to be so formidable. The palace masters probably didn't have a chance to make a comeback. Elder Gu, we've prepared quite a few good dishes and wine. Let's go have a taste together. Lan Yunxiao looked towards Gu Jinghe. She was Mu Jin's best friend. Since Mu Jins couldn't properly entertain her today, they had to entertain her well. Chapter 2869. Si Tuyen returned after sending Mu Jinsei back to her room. Dressed in a bright red robe, he looked very high-spirited as he immediately walked in front of the 5 palace lords. You guys better think this through. If you drink with me today and want to run away like last time, I won't let you off so easily. Hearing Si Tuyen's arrogant words, the 5 hall masters expressed their strong dissatisfaction. Sect master, your tone is getting bigger and bigger. When have we ever drunk and run away? That's right. The 5 of us will definitely make you drunk today. The bridegroom has already spoken. If we don't make him drunk today, we'll lose face. Lan family head, you should join us too. We have to drink with the bridegroom. Without waiting for Lan Hongtai to express his opinion, he was warmly pulled over by the 5 hall masters. Although he didn't know how Si Tuyen had drunk with the 5 hall masters in the past, he could vaguely feel it. He originally didn't want to join them, but after drinking a few cups, he completely blended in. Just like that, the famous figures of the Shengxian continent began to boast about their glorious past. Di Beichen, Lan Yunxiao, and Yu Linfeng were also pulled into the drinking party. Along with Si Tuyen and the others, they began to talk about the various things that had happened in the past few years. Among them, Di Beichen was undoubtedly the most embarrassed. Whether it was Si Tuyen or the hall masters, they had all watched him grow up. Thus, they were very clear about the various bad things he had done when he was young. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others sat at another table, eating and drinking. Unlike the other table, they chatted happily with each other. Yishuan, we've already set the date for your wedding. It'll be on the 8th of next month. Starting tomorrow, we'll start sending out invitations. Mu Lingbing's face was full of smiles. Good things happened one after another. Bailey Hongzhuang's wedding was the first to be prepared. Lan Hongtai's arrival this time also brought them good news. The transportation array had already been completed, so the wedding wasn't far away. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and said, "Mother, do as you see fit." "That's true. We will prepare for these things." Mu Lingbing reached out and stroked Bailey Hongzhuang's silky hair, her expression kind and gentle. "You just have to be a beautiful bride on the day." What happened next was just like what Di Beichen had told Bailey Hongzhuang earlier. As expected, Situyen once again knocked out the 5 hall masters with a drink. Even though the 5 temple masters were still clamoring to continue drinking, everyone knew that they were already drunk to the point where they couldn't even tell north from south. Even Lan Hongtai was not spared and collapsed on the table. In the end, Di Beichen and Lan Yunxiao were responsible for sending them back. As for when they would be able to wake up after drinking such strong alcohol, that was another matter altogether. Compared to the 5 hall masters, who were as drunk as mud, Situ Yan's terrifying alcohol tolerance was displayed. His face was slightly red, but he didn't show any signs of drunkenness. It was obvious that he was still at ease. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were full of admiration. This level of alcohol tolerance wasn't something an ordinary person could compare to. However, they didn't know that the reason why Situ Yan could drink so much was because he had been drinking alone for so many years. Chapter 2870. I'll go take a look at Jin Sei. Situ Yan walked down from the table. Facing the gazes of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, he was a little embarrassed. It was Situ Yan's first time getting married, so he couldn't stay calm. "Grandfather, don't forget to drink the wine with grandmother." Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Situ Yan nodded and gave Bailey Hongzhuang an understanding look. "Don't worry." Seeing Situ Yan slowly walk into the bridal chamber, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other and smiled. From today onwards, Tiangang sect officially had a sect master's wife. This relationship that had been entangled for 40 years finally had a beautiful ending. The next day, when Bailey Hongzhuang and the others saw Situ Yan and Mu Jin Sei, they could clearly feel that the relationship between the two had become closer. Mu Jin Sei's gaze towards Situ Yan couldn't help but reveal some true feelings. In fact, although Situ Yan and Mu Jin Sei had liked each other for many years, and even had a child together, the time they had truly been together was extremely short. Back then, they had only stayed at the stage of having their hearts connected. Their true relationship as a couple was extremely rare. Now the two could be said to be a true newlywed. They were stuck together like glue. It was just that they were embarrassed to show it in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other juniors. Compared to Situ Yan, who was flushed with success, the 5 palace masters were still drunk. According to Di Beichen's judgment, they wouldn't be able to wake up until 3 days later, as the invitations were sent out one by one. The news of Tiangang sect's young sect master and Limitless Palace's young palace master's marriage quickly spread throughout the entire Shengxian continent. All the major forces received the news immediately. The relationship between Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang was gradually known by everyone during the Battle of Zhuolu. Now that the news of the marriage was spread, everyone couldn't help but sigh. Once Tiangang sect and Limitless Palace unite, this force really can't be underestimated in the future. Don't forget that young palace master Bailey still has the Lan family and the Sun Moon Palace behind him. With these 4 forces working together, who in the entire Shengxian continent can go against them? We must go and congratulate him on such a joyous occasion. Such sensational news instantly became a hot topic among the people of the major forces. More people were envious and looked up to them. Many young women's hearts were broken when they knew that Di Beichen was going to get married. Di Beichen had always been the Prince Charming in everyone's mind. Many people tried their best to squeeze into Tiangang sect, just to find an opportunity to have a relationship with Di Beichen. Now that Di Beichen was about to get married, and the other party was the extremely noble Bailey Hongzhuang, everyone's wishful thinking disappeared in an instant. This could be said to be the most anticipated wedding in the entire Shengxian continent. There was no one who didn't know about it. Even the small dynasties controlled by the major forces couldn't help but hear such sensational news. When the people of Fengbo country found out that the young palace master of Limitless Palace was named Bailey Hongzhuang, everyone couldn't help but feel surprised. This was because this name was exactly the same as the name of the first daughter of the imperial city's General Bailey's family. Chapter 2871. When they were at the Azure Water School, Bailey Hongzhuang had already revealed her extraordinariness. What he didn't expect was that Di Beichen was actually the young lord of Tiangang sect. Thinking of all the things he used to tease Di Beichen, his forehead couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. It was no wonder that even though Di Beichen's legs were crippled, he still had a calm and relaxed appearance when he saw him. He was just a mere crown prince of a dynasty. What was he in front of the young lord of Tiangang sect? As long as he casually said a word, the entire Fengbo country could change dynasties. Emperor Xianyuan Yutian and Empress Jiang Jinying were also scared to death. Di Beichen had restored his previous identity. Recalling their previous actions, they could only hope that Di Beichen didn't have any thoughts of taking revenge on them. Otherwise, they would really die without a burial place. After Bailey Jintel learned of this news, he was first shocked. Then he felt a strong lingering fear. Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't his biological daughter. This was something he only found out later. But who could tell him why Bailey Hongzhuang, who had such a powerful background, would become his daughter? Now his heart was full of regret. Such a great opportunity. If he had treated Bailey Hongzhuang well in the past, then he would have had a meteoric rise now. As the young palace master of Limitless Palace, he could enjoy endless glory, splendor, and wealth just by having this identity to cover him. Unfortunately, such a good opportunity was destroyed by himself in the end. Such a big news naturally couldn't be concealed. Not long after, the people of Fengbo country understood that this Bailey Hongzhuang was the Bailey Hongzhuang. The two were the same person, and Di Beichen was their former Prince Chen. For a time, the entire imperial city was in a complete uproar. The people of Fengbo country were all shocked. Godly Dr. Squares Du Tianxua, Dong Sairu, and Ji Wenbin were completely dumbfounded after hearing this news. They hadn't heard any news of Bailey Hongzhuang for several years. They also knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had been completely disappointed in Fengbo country. The possibility of her returning was very small, but they still couldn't help but have some expectations in their hearts. However, they never thought that the next time they would hear news of Bailey Hongzhuang would be under such circumstances. The existence that people looked up to turned out to be Miss Bailey, who had always been by their side. Du Tianxua and Dong Sairu finally understood. Bailey Hongzhuang had such ability at such a young age. Why she didn't put the wealth of godly Dr. Square in her eyes. In fact, even if it was the entire country of Fengbo, Bailey Hongzhuang had never put it in her eyes. After hearing this news, Bailey Hongzhuang Emperor Bailey Hongzhuang School. Since Bailey Hongzhuang and the others passed the examination and successfully entered the sect, they had become legends of Azure Water School. Even the new students knew their names. Many students idolized them, and only hoped that they could pass the examination like them, and become a disciple of the sect. However, the true identity of Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen was no different from a heavy bomb that exploded in everyone's heart. This was really too shocking. Chapter 2872. After Di Beichen and the others sent out the invitations one by one, all the forces expressed that they would come in person to congratulate them. Whether it was Tiangang sect, Wuji Palace, Lan family, or Sun Moon Palace, they didn't usually offend many forces. Among them, the Yu family, which had the biggest conflict, had now completely disappeared from the Shengxian continent. Even some forces that had small conflicts before were now only thinking about how to reconcile with them. Otherwise, once the four forces joined forces, it would be easier to deal with them than with the Yu family. Since Bailey Hongzhuang defeated Yu Xiqing in the art of medicine and poison, Bailey Hongzhuang had become a new generation of masters in medicine and poison. No one doubted her ability in medicine and poison. The Yu family, which had Yu Xiqing as its leader, was destroyed in an instant by Bailey Hongzhuang. Who would dare to compete with her? With her horrifying poison skills, as long as Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to destroy a force, it was simply impossible to guard against. For a time, many forces began to prepare to go to Tiangang sect to participate in this grand wedding. and all kinds of precious gifts were taken out by them without hesitation. In the blink of an eye, it was already the day before the wedding. Bailey Hongzhuang had now returned to the Lan family with Lan Yunxiao and the others. Tomorrow, she would be married from the Lan family. Hongzhuang, you're getting married tomorrow. Are you nervous? Outside the house, Xia Jiqing's face was full of smiles as she walked quickly into the house. Behind Xia Jiqing, there was a series of dense footsteps. Then, Dongfang Yu, Yuan Xiaoman, and the others came in one after another. Seeing Xia Jiqing and the others suddenly appear, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were full of surprise. Jiqing, why are you here? Xia Jiqing and the others were cultivating in Tiangang sect. She had always thought that Xia Jiqing and the others would choose to wait for her there. Tomorrow is the day of your marriage. As your good friends, we naturally came here to send you off. Xia Jiqing smiled and winked. It just so happens that we haven't been to other places besides Tiangang Zone. We should take advantage of this great opportunity to see what the Super Lan family looks like. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and said, now that you've seen it, what do you think? You really live up to your reputation. Dongfang Yu's handsome face rippled with emotion. Compared to such a powerful family, we've seen too little of the world before. Boss, when we strolled around Blue Sun City earlier, we discovered that everyone was full of praise for you. Yuan Xiaoman's eyes sparkled, and her face was full of joy. That Lan Qingyan, how can she compare to you? You don't have to flatter me anymore. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Did you come alone? You didn't bring your sweetheart with you. Yuan Xiaoman blushed and said, I'm too lazy to bring him here. Everyone chuckled. Even if you don't bring it now, you'll see it often in the future. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the group of friends in front of her, and the smile in her eyes gradually deepened. When she was in Tiangang sect, she also learned from the mouths of several temple masters that Gong Shaoqing and the others' performance in the sect was very good. They were far more hardworking than ordinary disciples. Their perseverance and unyielding spirit were exactly the same as Bailey Hongzhuang's. It was under such hard work that their progress was extremely gratifying. Chapter 2873. In fact, the reason why Xia Jiqing and others were so desperate to cultivate had a lot to do with Bailey Hongzhuang. At the beginning, they and Bailey Hongzhuang were standing on the same starting line, but they didn't know when Bailey Hongzhuang had left them far behind. Especially after knowing Bailey Hongzhuang's tragic life, they couldn't do anything to help, which greatly stimulated them. They really didn't want to take advantage of Bailey Hongzhuang, but couldn't help her at all. Therefore, they could only cultivate crazily, even if the gap was narrowed a little. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and others were talking, another voice came into everyone's ears. I didn't expect you to come earlier than me. Mo Yunjue was still wearing a black brocade robe. The silver-embroidered bamboo reflected a faint silver light under the sun, making his handsome face more elegant and noble. His tall and straight posture was strong and full of power, and his every move was full of momentum that was difficult to hide. With just a glance, it made people sigh at what a handsome man he was. When Xia Jiqing and others saw Mo Yunjue again, they were also surprised. Since the end of the assessment battle, they hadn't seen Mo Yunjue again. They didn't expect to see him here today. Mo Yunjue, I haven't seen you for a long time. Today I finally see you. Dongfang Yu's face was full of emotion. When they were in the assessment competition, their relationship was also very good. Mo Yunjue smiled and nodded. It looks like you are doing very well in Tiangang sect. You all look full of energy. You left without saying a word. We didn't expect you to be the young master of Shitian Tower. You hit it too deeply, didn't you? Bai Junyu couldn't help but say. They had been with Mo Yunjue for so long, but they didn't know anything about the latter. Thinking of the years when they shared joys and sorrows, that was also a very deep memory. This matter is indeed my fault. It's good that you know it's your fault. This time, you must have a good drink with us, for the sake of the friendship we shared in the past. Yuan Jixin said. Back then, Bailey Hongzhuang and Mo Yunjue had expended a lot of effort to save them. They still remembered this life-saving grace clearly. Jixin is right. Tomorrow is Hongzhuang's big day. Let's take advantage of this opportunity and get drunk. Lu Qingyue curiously looked at Mo Yunjue. She had occasionally heard of Mo Yunjue's name before. Seeing him today, she felt that he truly deserved his reputation. The Heavenly Slaughter Pavilion's young master was indeed valiant and elegant. Xia Jiqing and Yuan Xiaoman looked at each other. During the assessment, Mo Yunjue was very good to Bailey Hongzhuang, and they had seen it with their own eyes. This affection could not be more obvious. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang was about to get married, Mo Yunjue must be very upset in his heart. At least pain was inevitable. And now Mo Yunjue had come to attend Bailey Hongzhuang's wedding. On the one hand, it could be seen that he was magnanimous, and on the other hand, it could also be seen how deep his love for Bailey Hongzhuang was. For such a man, their hearts were full of sighs. Chapter 2874. Since you've made this request, I will naturally accompany you to the end. Mo Yunjue's cold and handsome face rippled with a faint smile. However, on such a good day like tomorrow, your focus shouldn't be on me, but on Di Beichen, right? Bai Junyu and the others couldn't help but look at each other when they heard this. That's true. Tomorrow is such a good opportunity. If we let Di Beichen go just like that, it would be such a pity. But you kid, aren't you a bad friend? You left without a word back then. Did you not see us as friends at all? Mo Yunjue shook his head. We've known each other for so long. Don't you know what kind of person I am? To him, the most important person in the world was Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang's friends were naturally his friends as well. Back during the assessment, he had struggled and wanted to snatch Bailey Hongzhuang away from Di Beichen. If Bailey Hongzhuang only had eyes for him, that would be the greatest happiness in his life. However, he could not bear to hurt Bailey Hongzhuang. He did not want to see her hurt in the slightest. Bailey Hongzhuang already carried a heavy burden on her shoulders. If he were to make her feel pressured and sad, how could that be called love? Now that he had come to this, he did not know if he regretted it or not. Even when Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were preparing for their wedding, he had not been able to sleep at all. He could not help but think of all sorts of possibilities. If he could have taken Bailey Hongzhuang away, when he had first met her at Luoyin Mountain Range, Di Beichen would not have left a deep enough mark in Bailey Hongzhuang's heart. Everything would still be in time. Unfortunately, he was used to being alone. Even though he felt that Bailey Hongzhuang gave him a completely different feeling, he still did not do so. He hated his own damned habit. By the time he went back and figured everything out, it was already too late. In life, once missed, it would be forever. He had never thought of himself as a gentleman. The amount of blood on his hands was a terrifying number. Being unscrupulous had always been his principle. It was precisely because of this principle that he did not trust anyone, and did not need anyone. In his world there was only himself. However, in front of Bailey Hongzhuang, who was as bright as the sun, he did not want to show that side of himself in front of her. Perhaps, he could walk the entire Shengxian continent with the title of evil and cruel, but he only wanted to be a gentleman in front of her. Just as he could ignore everyone's opinion, he could not ignore Bailey Hongzhuang's opinion. He could not accept the look of disgust he would see if he got Bailey Hongzhuang by hook or by crook. Therefore he walked step by step until now. Did he regret it? He didn't know either. The only thing he knew was that his heart ached when he found out that Bailey Hongzhuang was about to become another man's woman. It was a bloody pain. However, he still wanted to give Bailey Hongzhuang his greatest blessing. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang's smile would belong to someone else in the future, he wanted to see that smile again today. Chapter 2875. Listening to Mo Yunjue's words, Bai Junyu and the others all smiled. If they didn't have Mo Yunjue's help during the assessment, it wouldn't have been easy for them to reach the end. The most important thing was that they all understood that Hongzhuang was going to get married tomorrow. Mo Yunjue's mood would certainly not be good. Tomorrow, they wanted to pull Mo Yunjue to drink together to distract him. Hongzhuang, congratulations. If that guy Beichen doesn't treat you well in the future, don't forget that I'm still here. Mo Yunjue joked, but his deep eyes revealed a trace of seriousness. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Mo Yunjue and smiled. Thank you. Di Beichen has always been very attentive to Hong Zhuang. I'm afraid this kind of thing will never happen. Dong Fengyu shook his head. Yunjue, there are plenty of fish in the sea. You are so handsome and capable. The women you like should be lining up, right? Mo Yunjue glanced at Dong Fengyu. Listening to your tone, I'm afraid you haven't found your other half after staying in Tiangang sect for so long? As soon as these words came out, Dong Fengyu's face couldn't help but stiffen. He said with a sullen face, Brother, I'm trying to comfort you. Why are you exposing my shortcomings? Dongfeng, I think you're thinking too much. What kind of person is Yunjue? Do you think he needs your comfort? Xia Jiqing chuckled. I think you should take care of yourself first. On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang accompanied Xia Jiqing and the others to play around in the vicinity of Blue Sun City. During dinner, everyone drank and chatted, talking about the past. Although it had only been a few years, all the things that had happened made people feel as if they had been separated for a lifetime. However, Bailey Hongzhuang finally returned to her room to rest under the urging of Mu Lingbing and Nangong Wu, because she had to get up early tomorrow. Usually, Bailey Hongzhuang spent most of her nights cultivating. However, she didn't cultivate tonight, so she couldn't sleep. Tomorrow she would marry Di Beichen. Since she and Di Beichen got to know each other, she often thought of this matter in her mind. Now that everything was about to come true, she couldn't help but be a little nervous. Any bride would have this kind of mood on the eve of their wedding. The sky hadn't yet brightened when Bailey Hongzhuang got up. She was the busiest person in the morning. Mu Jintze, Mu Lingbing, and Nangong Wu also came to the room for the first time. From the expressions of the three people, Bailey Hongzhuang could see that they probably didn't sleep last night. Although their faces showed a little tiredness, their eyes were unusually bright and full of excitement. Today, we have to dress Hongzhuang up as the most beautiful bride in the world and dazzle everyone's eyes. Nangong Wu's face was full of smiles. As soon as she came in, she couldn't help but speak. Today's wedding could be said to be the focus of attention. They had to let Bailey Hongzhuang leave a deep impression on everyone. Our Yixuan is already beautiful. Today, after dressing up, she will definitely be more bright and moving. Mu Lingbing smiled. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the three women in front of her, who were ready to do a big job, and couldn't help but laugh. With you three beauties by my side, no matter how I dress up, I can only be ranked fourth. Chapter 2876. Bailey Hongzhuang changed into her wedding dress and sat in front of the dressing table. She closed her eyes at the signal of Mu Lingbing and the other two, completely showing her face to them. Usually, Bailey Hongzhuang's dress was very simple, often just using a hairpin to tie up her hair. It was very rare for her to dress up like this. However, even if she was dressed simply, it was enough to stand out. Smelling the faint fragrance of cosmetics, Bailey Hongzhuang only felt Mu Lingbing busying herself with her face. Nangong Wu was busy combing her hair, and Mu Jintze was giving some advice from time to time. The servants were not idle either. They had been preparing the accessories and the items that would be needed for the wedding later. All in all, the whole house was extremely busy. Xia Jiqing and the others also got up very early, but they could not squeeze into Bailey Hongzhuang's house because it was too busy inside. After a long while, Bailey Hongzhuang opened her eyes under Mu Lingbing's voice. Looking at herself in the mirror, Bailey Hongzhuang also had a moment of absent-mindedness. Her fair and moist skin seemed to be able to squeeze water out of it. Her slender willow leaf eyebrows were gentle and elegant. Her pair of phoenix eyes were overflowing with light like gems. When she smiled, they curved slightly like crescent moons and moved people. Her stunning face was like the bright sun, dazzling and dazzling. Her bright red wedding dress was embroidered with gold thread, which made her already snow-white and tender skin even more delicate. She was noble without losing her elegance, and gorgeous without losing her charm. Thinking back to when she was in Fengbo country, Bailey Hongzhuang had also worn a bright red wedding dress. But at that time her face was a bit green. But now it was truly gorgeous. Mu Lingbing and the others looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in front of them. As early as when Bailey Hongzhuang was trying on the wedding dress, they could imagine how stunning Bailey Hongzhuang would be on the day of the wedding. but now that they saw it with their own eyes, they could not help but feel shocked. This is really too beautiful. Nangongwu could not help but sigh. She really is a peerless beauty. Mu Jin's eyes were full of admiration. When she was young, she had been praised many times, but compared to her own granddaughter, she really felt inferior. Mu Lingbing's eyes were shining like stars, and her beautiful face could not hide her pride and happiness. Such a beautiful bride was her precious daughter. When we arrive at Tiangang sect, I'm afraid Beichen will be dumbfounded, haha. When the servants of the Lan family saw Bailey Hongzhuang, they almost forgot to breathe. They could not help but sigh at the fact that such a beautiful person actually existed in this world. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a bright and moving smile as she looked at herself in the mirror. She was beginning to anticipate Di Beichen's expression when he saw her. The sun shone brightly and the sky was clear, as if even the heavens knew that today was an extremely good day. The weather was exceptionally good. The entire Lan family in Blue Sun City were filled with a joyous atmosphere. Today was the wedding of the Lan family's only daughter, Lan Yixuan. Furthermore, with such a grand occasion, it was naturally the focus of everyone's attention. To the members of the Lan family, this was not only Lan Yixuan's big day, it was also their big day. From this day onwards, the Lan family's position would be different from before. When Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked out of the house and appeared in everyone's line of sight, almost everyone was stunned for a moment. Chapter 2877. Bailey Hongzhuang wore a luxurious wedding crown and an exquisite crimson wedding robe. Her skirt often dragged on the red carpet, and her alluring face rippled with faint benefits. She was so beautiful and noble that it made others feel ashamed of their inferiority. Lan Hongtai, Lan Yunxiao, the Lan family's elders, and Bailey Hongzhuang's good friends were all gathered together to discuss today's wedding. On the other side, the Tiangang sect was also bustling with activity. Di Beichen had gotten up early in the morning and was in high spirits as he waited for the arrival of his bride. Looking at the appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang, Lan Hongtai and the others' faces were all filled with amazement, and the corners of their lips could not help but curl upwards. Such a beautiful granddaughter was truly their pride. Now that they could see Bailey Hongzhuang find a good match, it could be considered as settling one of the worries in their hearts. Lan Yunxiao looked at his beautiful daughter and couldn't help but feel reluctant to part with her. When Bailey Hongzhuang was born, he had determined that she would be the pearl in his palm that he would protect for the rest of his life. Unfortunately, he never had the chance to be by her side as she grew up. Now that he had only been reunited with Bailey Hongzhuang for a short period of time, as a father, he had to hand his daughter over to another man. He really couldn't bear to part with her. However, on the other hand, he was also very satisfied with his son-in-law. Although he couldn't help but feel jealous, he was also very happy to see them getting along so well. The moment Mo Yunjue saw Bailey Hongzhuang appear, he froze. Everything around him seemed to have disappeared, leaving only the beautiful Bailey Hongzhuang. He had never seen Bailey Hongzhuang dressed up. Normally, her voice and smile were already unforgettable, but today, she gave off a kind of soul-shaking beauty. It was this kind of person who had always occupied his heart. It was a pity that such a beautiful girl was going to get married today. Gong Xiaoqing and the others' expressions weren't any better than Mo Yunjue's. After staring blankly for a while, they finally reacted. Then, the smiles on their faces couldn't help but deepen. This heavenly couple was truly enviable. Bailey Hongzhuang followed Mu Lingbing's instructions and offered tea to Lan Hongtai and the others. This was a custom before marriage, to thank her family for taking care of her all these years. Lan Hongtai and the others smiled and drank the tea that Bailey Hongzhuang handed to them. Then, they handed a big red envelope to Bailey Hongzhuang and said some of their best wishes to Bailey Hongzhuang. Everything seemed very warm. When Bailey Hongzhuang offered tea to Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing's eyes couldn't help tearing up, but her face revealed a joyful smile. Her only daughter was going to be married today. When everyone saw this scene, they were filled with emotion. Some were reluctant to part, but most of them were happy to give their blessings. After everything was done, The sound of firecrackers at the door rang out. The auspicious time had arrived, and the bride should get on the bridal sedan. Mu Lingbing personally covered Bailey Hongzhuang with a veil. This veil was made of thin gauze and couldn't completely cover Bailey Hongzhuang's face. Instead, it added a hazy sense of beauty, making her even more enchanting. This bridal sedan wasn't sealed. It was a phoenix sedan made of high-quality mahogany. Red silk floated around it, giving it an ethereal and luxurious feeling. Chapter 2878. Bewitching was dressed in a bright red wedding robe. His already handsome face looked even more elegant and unrestrained today. There was no one like him in this world. The entire Tiangang sect was already bustling with activity. All the major forces had sent people to congratulate them. It could be said that the atmosphere was jubilant, and words of congratulations could be heard everywhere. Young sect Master D, congratulations to you. Congratulations on the marriage. Thank you. Bewitching and Si Tuyan stood together, constantly thanking the people who had come to attend the wedding. The smiles on their faces never disappeared. Bewitching, Hongzhuang will be here soon. Are you looking forward to it? When Ziren reached out and touched Bewitching with a smirk on his face, Bewitching looked at Ziren and said honestly, of course. He had been looking forward to this day for too long. He didn't sleep at all last night, hoping that he would marry Hongzhuang today. Your wedding is really grand. Practically all the influential forces in the Shengxian continent have come to congratulate you. And none of them are ordinary people. Originally, my Yingying was quite satisfied with her own wedding. Now that she has compared it to yours, she can't help but throw a tantrum. Brother, you've really gotten me into trouble. When Ziren had a bitter look on his face, he pursed his lips, but there was still a strong sense of joy between his eyebrows. Bewitching sighed. I don't care about this kind of thing. However, when I get married, I naturally can't let my wife suffer the slightest grievance. After hearing Bewitching's words, Ziren, who had only come to complain, was deeply provoked. Who are you? Hurry up and give me back my original brother. Bewitching raised his eyebrows. Compared to you who used to worry that I would die alone, you can finally rest assured now. I used to urge you to find a woman, because I thought it was abnormal that you didn't get close to women at all. I was afraid that you wouldn't know what to do if you fell in love with me. Ziren shook his head, as if recalling the situation back then, and couldn't help but sigh. However, I didn't expect you to completely change after finding someone you like. This situation of valuing women over friends is far different from what I had imagined. How can someone like you, who has been married for several years, understand my feelings as a newlywed? When Ziren suddenly clutched his chest, as if he had been stabbed by a sword for no reason. His heart hurt so much. Ziren, Bewitching is busy greeting the guests now. What are you talking about? Shangguan Yingying saw Ziren's exaggerated behavior as soon as she came out, and couldn't help but ask. Seeing Shangguan Yingying, Ziren felt as if he had seen a relative. He quickly waved to Shangguan Yingying. Yingying, Bewitching has completely become a beast now. He actually shows off his love in front of a married man like me. Hearing this, Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but chuckle. Today is Bewitching's big day. If he doesn't show off his love at this time, when will he? You are too unromantic. How can you compare to Bewitching? Uft. Ziren pretended to vomit blood. My heart hurts. Don't stop me, I have to heal. Don't go too far. When Hongzhuang comes, I won't have time to greet the guests. You have to come and help. Beast. Chapter 2879. When Bailey Hongzhuang arrived at Tiangang sect, at first sight, Bailey Hongzhuang saw Bewitching's eagerly waiting figure. The red wedding robe on Bewitching's body was inseparable and magnificent. His figure was thin and tall, slender and noble. The jade belt on his waist fluttered in the wind. He was as elegant as an immortal. His eyes were proud and confident. His handsome face was rippling with a warm and charming smile. His whole body emitted a dazzling light, shining brightly. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, Bewitching's face also raised a deep smile. The curve of his mouth couldn't be taken back, even if he wanted to. Looking at the man in the distance who was also wearing a red wedding robe, Bailey Hongzhuang's cherry-red lips outlined a shallow arc. That was a smile from the heart, which made her beautiful little face more bright and dazzling. The two didn't need to speak. Just by looking at each other's eyes, they could understand the excitement and joy in each other's heart. With the help of the servants, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly got down from the wedding sedan. Under the joyful eyes of the people of Tiangang sect, she walked step by step towards Bewitching. When the two dazzling red lights converged together, in a split second, the salute was long and the bell and drum were long. Bewitching stood quietly at the front of the Tiangang sect team. He just watched his most beloved woman walk towards him step by step. His heart was surging with excitement. His handsome and perfect face unconsciously bloomed with a joyful smile. His eyes as deep as the sea were shining with a doting light. It seemed that he wanted to melt Bailey Hongzhuang in his infinite tenderness. After Bailey Hongzhuang saw Bewitching, her eyes never moved. Looking at the man who occupied her heart, the things she had experienced over the years were vivid in her mind. Her heart couldn't help but soften. The reason why she was able to walk step by step to the present was that she couldn't do without the company of this man. Not only did this man give her love, but he also helped her find her family. He was also her strong backing. From now on, she would walk hand in hand with this man for the rest of her life. Everything in the future was unknown, but as long as Bewitching was by her side, she would not be afraid of anything. All the people who had come to attend the wedding had long been curious about Bailey Hongzhuang. Since the Battle of Zhuolu, Bailey Hongzhuang had been like a black horse. From a nobody who no one knew, she had suddenly become an outstanding existence in the younger generation. The young palace master of Limitless Palace was just like the sect master of Limitless Palace. He came out of nowhere and created a sect with lightning speed, becoming one of the heroes of today. Before they could understand more about Bailey Hongzhuang's situation, the news about the Yu clan and the Long clan quickly spread. Everything happened so fast that people were caught unprepared. Many people didn't even have time to react before the dust settled. The speed was so fast that it made people speechless. Bailey Hongzhuang's true identity was even more shocking. She was supposed to be a proud daughter of heaven, but no one knew of her existence. When they found out about her true identity, she had already become an unshakable existence in the Shengxian continent. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang's name was already well known, there were very few people who had actually seen Bailey Hongzhuang. Only those who had participated in the Battle of Zhuolu knew of Bailey Hongzhuang's true appearance. Chapter 2880. However, when the crowd saw the devastatingly beautiful face, their eyes were filled with shock and amazement. Hiss! The crowd could not help but gasp. Many of them even forgot to breathe. Does such a stunning beauty really exist? She and Bewitching looked as if they had walked out from a painting. They were so compatible that it was hard to believe. Heavens, the young sect master of Limitless Palace is as beautiful as a flower. With that appearance, she's truly the only one in this family. The master and madam of the Lan family were famous for their outstanding looks when they were young. Naturally, their daughter would not be too bad. However, after seeing her today, I can't help but be amazed. The disciples of Tiangang sect felt proud after hearing the discussions of the people from the other forces. Their eldest miss was truly a unique beauty. Previously, there were people who dared to question their eldest Mississippi. Now they could only shut their mouths obediently. Qin Ai and the rest looked at the two people, who could be said to be a match made in heaven. Their eyes were filled with envy and blessings. From today onwards, Bailey Hongzhuang was not only the eldest miss of Tiangang sect, she was also the young sect master's wife. My wife, you're so beautiful. When Bailey Hongzhuang arrived in front of Bewitching, Bewitching also spoke the words in his heart. He had long known that his wife was known as the #1 beauty. However, only he himself knew the magnitude of the shock that Bailey Hongzhuang brought to him today. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart trembled. Her fair and beautiful face was stained with a blush. Even though she had been praised many times today, she could not help but blush under Bewitching's undisguised loving gaze. The joy and happiness in her heart grew stronger. Di Baichen held Bailey Hongzhuang's soft and boneless little hand. As if he could feel her nervousness, his large hand tightened. Their gazes intertwined as they stared deeply into each other's eyes. All of their deep feelings were expressed without words. Holding your hand, and growing old together. From now on, they would only envy mandarin ducks, and not immortals. For a lifetime, a pair of people. Everyone present seemed to be able to understand the depth of their feelings, through their deep gazes. In fact, ever since Bailey Hongzhuang took back everything from the Lan family, her and Di Baichen's identity had gradually spread. Such a beautiful love had almost become a classic that everyone envied. As early as the beginning, Di Baichen's love for a woman without any status or background was already surprising. And now their relationship finally had a perfect ending. It was really enviable. Young Sect Master Di and young Palace Master Bailey are truly an immortal couple. The depth of their relationship is truly enviable. Everyone couldn't help but be infected by the love between the two of them. They sincerely hoped that they could obtain happiness. Di Baichen took Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and walked step by step on the red carpet towards the wedding hall. The road was very long, spanning over 1,000 meters. Both sides of the red carpet were filled with people who had come to congratulate them. Along the way, fresh flowers were constantly sprinkled around the two of them. The quiet and elegant fragrance matched the bright red color of the flowers. It was a magnificent sight. The two of them walked hand in hand under the gazes of countless people, becoming the center of attention. Chapter 2881. Their faces were filled with blissful and sweet smiles as they walked into the grand hall together. When Xiren and Shangguan Yingying's eyes flashed with joy when they saw Bailey Hongzhuang and Mu Yunxi walking towards them. Situ Yan and the rest were already in the grand hall, waiting for the two newlyweds to arrive. Lan Yunxiao and the rest had followed the procession to the Tiangang sect. At this moment, they had already entered the grand hall ahead of Bailey Hongzhuang and Mu Yunxi. As the crowd watched the two newlyweds walk towards them, the joy on their faces intensified. It was not an easy task to watch them walk step by step to this point. As they walked into the grand hall and looked at the smiling faces around them, Bailey Hongzhuang's initially nervous heart relaxed a little. The usually spacious grand hall was now filled to the brim. Situ Yan Mu Jin's and the rest were at the front of the hall. There were many unfamiliar faces on both sides of the hall that Bailey Hongzhuang had never seen before. However, from the way these people dressed and their bearing, she could tell that they should be the leaders of the various forces. Among them, Bailey Hongzhuang even saw the medicine sect master. Back then, because she had won the alchemist competition, the medicine sect's sovereign had been very dissatisfied. She did not expect that today, on the day of her and Di Baichen's wedding, the medicine sect's sovereign would also come to support them. As a result, the people standing next to the medicine sect's sect master could easily tell. Sensing Bailey Hongzhuang's trembling little hands due to her nervousness, Di Baichen could not help but tighten his grip. His gentle voice quietly entered Bailey Hongzhuang's ears. "Don't worry, I'm here." Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang quietly raised her eyes to look at Di Baichen. The corners of her lips could not help but curl up slightly. Her thumping heart also calmed down a little. With Di Baichen by her side, it was like a reassuring pill. Under the well-wishing gazes of the elders, relatives and friends, the matron of honor shouted, "The time has come. The auspicious hour has arrived. Bow to the heavens and earth." Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang turned around at the same time and sincerely kowtowed 3 times towards the heavens and the earth at the entrance of the palace. Second, bow to the elders. The two of them turned back to face the laughing Lan Yunxiao, Mu Lingbing, Situ Yan, and Mu Jin's and kowtowed 3 times in gratitude. Di Baichen had no parents, so his master was like a father to him. Husband and wife bowed to each other. He turned around again, his eyes filled with deep affection. He bowed once more to the person he would spend the rest of his life with. The ceremony is complete. With this announcement, everyone cheered. The sound of firecrackers and the sound of copper gongs rang throughout the Tiangang sect in an instant. Di Baichen held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and a radiant smile appeared on his handsome and perfect face. Bailey Hongzhuang looked up at Di Beichen. At this moment, they only had eyes for each other. After so long, they had finally become each other's rightful other half. Di Beichen was filled with excitement. He had finally married Bailey Hongzhuang in a grand manner. From now on, the entire world would know that Bailey Hongzhuang was his wife. Following this, good friends from both sides swarmed forward and pulled Di Beichen to drink. At the back of the palace, over 1,000 tables had been prepared. The dishes were first class, and it was a spectacular sight. Chapter 2882. In the bridal chamber. Master, why don't we go outside and scout for you? Xiaohei's eyes darted around. Even though she was in the room, she could hear the clamor coming from outside. It was very lively. How could Bailey Hongzhuang, their master, not know what they were thinking when she saw the look of anticipation on their faces? What did the three beasts love the most? Food. The Tiangang sect was holding a grand banquet today, and there were countless delicacies. These three little fellows had probably lost their souls when they heard the news. It was not easy for them to persist in the room until now. Bailey Hongzhuang reached out and flicked Xiaohei's forehead. You three gluttons. Xiaohei pursed her lips and rubbed her forehead. Master, we're not doing this for food. We're mainly helping you to check if Di Beichen has drunk too much. Alright, you guys go. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. She knew all too well what these three fellows were like. However, today was such a joyous day. How could she not let these three little fellows go out for a stroll? Upon hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the three beasts' eyes lit up and they hurriedly said, Master, don't worry. We'll pay attention to Di Beichen's movements. We'll be back soon. Just pay attention to your image when you eat. By the time Di Beichen returned, it was already night time. Bailey Hongzhuang had been sitting quietly at the head of the bed, waiting for him to return. Wife, I've been held back by them and can't get away. You're not angry, are you? Di Beichen walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side and spoke with a strong smell of alcohol. How could I be? Bailey Hongzhuang stepped forward to support Di Beichen. When she saw how aggressive Wen Xiren and the others were today, she knew that it would not be easy for Di Beichen to get away today. Logically speaking, as a cultivator, drinking alcohol would not have any effect at all. However, cultivators felt that drinking alcohol was too boring. Therefore, everyone drank specially made alcohol. Even cultivators could not expel the smell of alcohol. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to pour Di Beichen some sobering tea, the drunkenness on Di Beichen's face suddenly disappeared. He was looking at Bailey Hongzhuang with a smile. Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly startled. What's wrong with you? Di Beichen held Bailey Hongzhuang's two small hands. His eyes were shining like the stars in the sky. There are policies at the top and countermeasures at the bottom. Today is our wedding night. How can I get drunk like this? How did you hide from them? Bailey Hongzhuang was surprised. Di Beichen was able to hide from Xiren and the others. This was too shocking. Master often drinks over the years. I'm the one who drinks the most. Although my alcohol tolerance is not as good as Master's, it's not much different. Although Xiren grew up with me, he was the one who got drunk every time he drank. He doesn't know how much alcohol I can hold. As for Dongfang and the others, they naturally don't know. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang understood. Then how are they now? They're all drunk. However, someone will bring them back. Don't worry. Di Beichen shook his head and smiled. Wife, it's time for us to drink the cross-cupped wine. As he spoke, Di Beichen picked up 2 glasses of wine from the table and handed one to Bailey Hongzhuang. Both of his hands held the glass and drank the wine in one gulp. Chapter 2883. After drinking the wine, Di Beichen's eyes blurred as he stared at the stunning beauty in front of him and said, Wifey, I love you. Bailey Hongzhuang blushed slightly, but there was an indescribable satisfaction in her dark and clear eyes. I love you too. After waiting for so long, I've finally married you. Di Beichen smiled. Do you know how happy I am? Actually, even back then, I had already decided that you were the only one for me in this life. Bailey Hongzhuang rarely expressed her feelings so directly to Di Beichen. At this moment, when he heard these words, Bewitching only felt that the string at the bottom of his heart had been touched, and his taut rationality had completely collapsed at this moment. In the next second, Bailey Hongzhuang felt a thick shadow approaching her lips. She closed her eyes, her eyelids trembling slightly, and welcomed Bewitching's thin lips. Bewitching's kiss was gentle from shallow to deep, but also extremely hot, as if he wanted to set Bailey Hongzhuang's entire body on fire. Bailey Hongzhuang passively and awkwardly responded to Bewitching's kiss, and it was this inexperience that aroused Bewitching's desire. He reached out and pulled Bailey Hongzhuang into his arms, domineeringly pressing her under his body. Bailey Hongzhuang blushed as she felt the masculine scent assaulting her nostrils. His strong and powerful hands fanned the flames on her body, making her tremble everywhere he touched. Bewitching gently kissed Bailey Hongzhuang, and his hot breath continuously sprayed on her face, making her heart pound and itch. An unconcealable heat stimulated her sensitive body. The firm heat pressed against Bailey Hongzhuang, and Bailey Hongzhuang was unable to move under Bewitching's body. The heat made her confused, and she couldn't help but move a little. And it was this slight movement that made Bewitching's head explode. This charming little vixen, didn't she know that this movement was taking his life? Bailey Hongzhuang obviously didn't know this. She only felt a little uncomfortable from the heat, and only wanted to make herself more comfortable. As Bailey Hongzhuang moved, the lust in Bewitching's eyes deepened. He kissed Bailey Hongzhuang's earlobe, and his sexy and magnetic voice sounded in her ear. "Wife, I love you." Bailey Hongzhuang's body trembled slightly, and her hands then wrapped around Bewitching's waist. Her face was already so red that it could drip blood. This feeling made her nervous, but the other party was Bewitching, so she didn't resist. Feeling Bailey Hongzhuang's response, Bewitching was no longer tense. He reached his hand into Bailey Hongzhuang's clothes, and his rough fingertips brushed against Bailey Hongzhuang's delicate skin. The cold and tender touch made his heart sway. He crazily tore Bailey Hongzhuang's clothes, and only felt that everything was unnecessary at this moment. Bailey Hongzhuang only felt a chill in front of her chest, and couldn't help but panic. Then the strong and hot body covered her body. As if afraid of losing the last layer of cover, Bailey Hongzhuang could only hug Bewitching tightly. She didn't even dare to open her eyes, and didn't dare to look at everything in front of her. Looking down at Bailey Hongzhuang's blushing cheeks and tightly closed eyes, Bewitching's heart was filled with tenderness. He kept kissing Bailey Hongzhuang's snow-white skin, and then gently said in Bailey Hongzhuang's ear, "Don't be afraid." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded almost indiscernibly, and endured Bewitching's everything. Chapter 2884. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching woke up early in the morning to serve tea to Situ Yen and the others. To Bewitching, Situ Yen and Mu Jins were his family. Since his parents weren't here, then the tea should be served to Situ Yen and Mu Jins. Situ Yen and Mu Jin smiled as they gave Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching 2 large red packets. Their eyes were filled with joy, looking at the newlyweds in front of them. They really liked them no matter how they looked at them. "In the future, you two must support each other and live a good life," Situ Yen said sincerely. "Grandfather, don't worry. We will definitely do that." Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching were full of smiles, and were filled with confidence when they spoke. Lan Yunxiao and the others also woke up early. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others came to serve tea, they were already there. In fact, Situ Yen and the others were busy dealing with the aftermath yesterday. A portion of the guests had already left after the banquet, but even more guests stayed the night in Tiangang sect. However, with Situ Yen and the others' cultivation, it wasn't a problem for them to not sleep for a few days. Beichen, Xiren really drank too much yesterday. After Yingying helped him back, it's said that he's still asking for more wine. Situ Yen shook his head and sighed. Shangguan Yingying was clearly speechless at how drunk Xiren was, so she didn't continue to take care of him. She left Xiren in the room, and came out by herself. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching looked at each other and smiled. Among the people who pestered Bewitching to drink yesterday, Xiren was the one who was the fiercest. Thus, Bewitching forced Xiren to drink the most. "It's fine. He'll wake up in 2 days, Di Beichen said with a light smile. Shangguan Yingying was speechless after seeing Xiren's appearance. Yesterday, she was busy greeting the guests with Mu Jin's and the others. As for when Xiren and Di Beichen drinking together, she didn't pay any attention to it. After all, it was a big day for good brothers. To cause a ruckus was very normal. However, she didn't expect that Di Beichen would be so drunk. What she was more worried about was that yesterday was Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang's big day. If Di Beichen was also drunk, then wouldn't she be letting Hongzhuang? Thinking of this, she felt that when Xiren was really too stupid, it was enough to cause a ruckus. If Di Beichen was also unconscious for 3 days and 3 nights, how would Hongzhuang feel? However, when Shangguan Yingying saw that Di Beichen was refreshed and didn't look drunk at all, she couldn't help but be surprised. Beichen, you don't look drunk last night? However, according to what Xiren and the others had said, Di Beichen also seemed to be quite drunk. Di Beichen's lips curled into a smile. Yesterday was such an important day. How could I let my wife stay in the room alone? Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but narrow her eyes when she heard this. She quickly understood the crux of the matter. Could it be that you were pretending to be drunk last night? Di Beichen shook his head. I got them all drunk before going back. Shangguan Yingying was speechless. So many people were clamoring to get Di Beichen drunk. In the end, the groom wasn't drunk. Instead, it was everyone else who was drunk. Chapter 2885. Hongzhuang, Di Beichen, congratulations. Mo Yunjue slowly walked in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. Looking at the two of them glued to each other like glue, a trace of sadness flashed across his deep eyes. Thank you. Di Beichen clasped his hands. Yesterday, the only one who could tell that he was pretending to be drunk was Mo Yunjue. It was just that Mo Yunjue never said it out loud, because Mo Yunjue was drinking by himself. Even now that he was married to Hongzhuang, Mo Yunjue still did not let go of his feelings for Hongzhuang. Di Beichen saw this clearly. No matter what, in this relationship, he was the winner. He admired Mo Yunjue from the bottom of his heart. Now he only hoped that Mo Yunjue would be able to think through everything and let go of it. Then they would be great friends. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was full of smiles. She did not miss the sadness in Mo Yunjue's eyes. She was even more grateful to Mo Yunjue for his help and support. If possible, she really hoped that Mo Yunjue would be able to find his own happiness. A good man like him should find a woman who loves him wholeheartedly and live a happy life. Yunjue, Xiren and the rest are already drunk to mush. Only you are safe and sound. Bailey Hongzhuang said with a smile. Hearing this, Mo Yunjue smiled faintly. They didn't know how strong the aftereffects of the wine were. That's why they were at a disadvantage. Shangguan Yingying glanced at Mo Yunjue and sighed in her heart. This Mo Yunjue was also a hero. It was a pity that he met Di Beichen. I'm here today to say goodbye to you. There are still a lot of things to deal with in Shirtian Tower. I've been outside for a long time these days. If I don't go back, my subordinates will complain. Mo Yunjue said slowly. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were both startled. Xiren and the rest were going to stay in Tiangang sect for a few more days. They did not expect Mo Yunjue to leave so early. However, in the face of such a Mo Yunjue, they could not say anything to persuade him to stay. Thinking about it, it was torture for Mo Yunjue to stay here for another day. Their only hope was that the next time they saw Mo Yunjue, they could get along as good friends. Come often when you're free next time. Mo Yunjue nodded. Then I'll leave first. There will be many opportunities to meet in the future. Before leaving, Mo Yunjue took a deep look at Bailey Hongzhuang, as if he wanted to imprint her appearance in his heart. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang had married someone else, in his heart, Bailey Hongzhuang would always be a ray of sunshine. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen stopped and looked at the tall black figure that was gradually moving away. Their hearts were also very complicated. Di Beichen quietly held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and said, Yunjue is a broad-minded person. I believe that the next time we meet, it will be much better. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, a bit of guilt in her eyes. She really did not want to hurt Mo Yunjue, But the situation had become like this in the end. When Xiren woke up from his drunken state, it was already 3 days later. He was at a loss, and thought that it was the second day after Bewitching's wedding. However, Shangguan Yingying ruthlessly told him the painful truth. Among everyone, he was the last to wake up. Bewitching and Bailey Hongzhuang saw that he had not woken up for a long time, so they took the lead to go to Wuji Palace. Chapter 2886. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching returned to Limitless Palace together, they received a warm welcome from the disciples of Limitless Palace as expected. On the day of the wedding, Yu Linfeng and Nangong Wu also brought along the elders of the sect when they went to Tiangang sect. As for the disciples who went to watch the ceremony, only a few of them participated in the Battle of Zhuelu with Bailey Hongzhuang. Although the disciples of Limitless Palace did not witness the spectacular scene of Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching's wedding with their own eyes, they could imagine it just by imagining it. Back then, when everyone knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was their young palace master, other than doubt, they were even more dissatisfied. Now, after knowing that Bailey Hongzhuang's identity was so honorable, everyone could only sigh in admiration. Now, which forces young palace master's limelight could be compared to their young palace master. Just these layers of identity were unattainable by many. Now, when the disciples of Limitless Palace said that they were from Limitless Palace, they enjoyed the envious gazes of others. It was really something to be proud of. Ji Lishue and a group of doctors and poison masters from the Yu clan already knew the true identity of Bailey Hongzhuang. They did not expect that Bailey Hongzhuang was actually Xian Yi. This was simply something that no one dared to think about. However, these two people were really the same person. After the incident with the Long clan, Ji Lishue and the others already knew the truth of everything. This truth made Ji Lishue feel a sense of lingering fear. But at the same time, she was even more convinced of Bailey Hongzhuang. She could not imagine that the people she recklessly offended were actually Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching. No wonder Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching were not afraid of her at all. In fact, the entire Yu clan was nothing in their eyes. As for herself, she was just as insignificant as an ant in Bailey Hongzhuang and Yu Yang's eyes. Fortunately, Bailey Hongzhuang was magnanimous. If she implicated the entire Ji family because of her own problems, the consequences would be unimaginable. What surprised her the most was that Bailey Hongzhuang was still willing to recruit her after all that had happened. If this matter were to be spread out, most people would not believe it. Most importantly, she never thought that the young Bailey Hongzhuang's medical and poison skills would actually surpass Yu Xiqing's and become the new master of medicine and poison. All of this made Ji Lishue more determined to stay in Limitless Palace no matter what. This was because Bailey Hongzhuang's magnanimity was something that many people would not be able to do. Si Tu Yan and Mu Jin's had already settled down in Tiangang sect. Sun Moon Palace had already appeared, but with Gu Jinghe, the Great Elder, there was no need for Mu Jin's to worry. In fact, in the 20 years when she was poisoned, Gu Jinghe had always been in charge of Sun Moon Palace. Speaking of which, Mu Jin's was more of a spiritual leader in Sun Moon Palace, while Gu Jinghe was the one who understood Sun Moon Palace's internal and external affairs the most. With Si Tu Yan and Mu Jin's overseeing Tiangang sect, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching could stay in Limitless Palace and cultivate properly. On the other hand, they wanted to nurture doctors and poison masters. Both of them had already reached the Purple Realm, but cultivation was a never-ending path to begin with. They absolutely couldn't slack off in the slightest. Chapter 2887. After Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching returned to Limitless Palace, they cultivated in the Heaven Stairway at night. During the day, Bailey Hongzhuang began to nurture doctors and poison masters. Today, Limitless Palace had opened a new branch called the Medical Poison Hall. It was specially built for doctors and poison masters. Previously, when Bailey Hongzhuang was not around, Yu Linfeng had also recruited a few famous doctors and poison masters to nurture their disciples. Although the time was short, the development was very good. After all, Now that the Yu clan had completely disappeared, the major forces did not have much development in this area. Once Limitless Palace nurtured their disciples in this area, their influence would grow in the future. When Bailey Hongzhuang appeared in the medical poison hall, Ji Lixue and the others looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a very complicated gaze. The young palace master in front of them was Xian Yi, who they had interacted with day and night. Many of them had even ostracized and ridiculed Xian Yi before. Now that Xian Yi had become an existence that was beyond their reach, the difference in their hearts was really big. Ji Lixue had already made up her mind that she must stay in Limitless Palace. Therefore, although she had a strange feeling when she saw Bailey Hongzhuang, she was more calm. Bailey Hongzhuang naturally noticed the reaction of the medical poison hall disciples. After seeing Ji Lixue's calmness, her eyes flashed with gratification. It seemed that her judgment was not wrong. Ji Lixue was indeed a talent that could be nurtured. I believe that everyone is not unfamiliar with me. After all, we have been together for such a long time. I won't say anything else. You don't have to take the matters of the past to heart. Just treat it as today's the first day we know each other. There's no need to feel any psychological pressure. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the disciples present all heaved a sigh of relief, completely relieved. Since everyone was able to pass the Yu clan's examination, your medical and poison skills are naturally not bad. I won't talk about the simple parts. I will start with some pathology. Bailey Hongzhuang went straight to the point. She had a certain understanding of the basic skills of this batch of doctors and poison masters. They were not inexperienced doctors and poison masters who had just dabbled in this area. Therefore, Bailey Hongzhuang had already thought of a teaching method in her mind. She did not have any thoughts of hiding her medical and poison skills. Letting more people know about it would also benefit more people. Originally, when everyone saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was so young, they thought that she might not have much experience in teaching. But after Bailey Hongzhuang's step-by-step narration, they realized that Bailey's teaching was much better than other teachers. She could find the roots. And Bailey Hongzhuang's answers was. This solved the problems that had been troubling everyone in a short period of time, giving them a brand new perspective and a completely different feeling. At the beginning, the disciples were still thinking about other problems. However, as they listened, everyone became completely focused. They listened carefully to every word Bailey Hongzhuang said, afraid that they would miss any details. Chapter 2888. However, when they listened to Bailey Hongzhuang's narration, they were gradually attracted to it. This wasn't to say that they didn't understand the illness that Bailey Hongzhuang was talking about, but Bailey Hongzhuang's narration had a kind of magical power that made people immerse themselves in it. This was a completely new feeling. Even they never knew that teaching could become so lively and interesting, without the slightest bit of obscurity and dullness. After listening to all of this, everyone couldn't help but have a feeling that the problem was actually so simple. They had thought that the problem was too complicated before. The content that Bailey Hongzhuang taught every day wasn't much, but it was all extremely crucial. As for the general mastery, it was up to the disciples to understand it themselves. As for the problems that they didn't understand, they were handed over to the other masters to solve. Although she didn't stay in the poison hall for too long every day, the medical and poison skills of the disciples of the poison hall were rapidly improving. Unknowingly, Bailey Hongzhuang already had absolute authority in the poison hall. Being personally guided by the young palace master was a treatment that the other branch halls couldn't enjoy. Gradually, after the disciples of the other branch halls heard the disciples of the poison hall talking about how perfect Bailey Hongzhuang's teaching was, many disciples chose to eavesdrop. Bailey Hongzhuang also discovered that every time she went to the poison hall, the number of disciples would increase by a lot. Regarding this, she didn't mind. In any case, having a better understanding of the medical and poison skills was also beneficial to the cultivator. After seeing the number of disciples increase, Bailey Hongzhuang, in addition to teaching the medical and poison skills every day, also told the other disciples about the things that they needed to pay attention to when encountering a poison master, as well as the basic treatment methods. Unknowingly, the poison hall had become the most lively place in the entire limitless palace. Hong Zhuang, you've only been guiding the poison hall for a few months, but the atmosphere of the entire poison hall has changed. You're really amazing. Nan Gongwu looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in admiration. During this period of time, while Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang were in the limitless palace, she had dragged Yu Linfeng out to play for a while. This time, she heard the most about the changes in the poison hall. All the elders of the limitless palace were full of praises for her. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. The medical and poison skills are what I'm best at. Since I've already decided to develop this aspect, I naturally can't slack. Nan Gongwu nodded her head. The effect of your teaching has far exceeded our expectations. Several elders have said that even the Yu clan back then couldn't compare to you in this aspect. It's not that Yu Siqing doesn't know how to teach, it's just that she's not willing to teach. The core content has always been in the hands of the Yu clan, so the effect naturally can't be compared. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes darkened. Just like when she had stayed in the Yu clan for more than a month, Yu Siqing was not willing to teach her anything. This kind of selfish person would only feel at ease if they had everything in their hands. I heard from the elders of the poison hall that Ji Lixue and the others have made great progress. If this continues, it won't be long before they are able to stand on their own. Yu Linfeng slowly walked over from the back. He had just returned to Limitless Palace not long ago, and he had also heard a lot of news from the various elders. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded her head lightly, a satisfied look on her face. Chapter 2889. The current medical poison hall not only had Limitless Palace's disciples, there were also many Long clan's disciples. The Long clan had always had a good relationship with the Yu clan. Thus, the Long clan had many doctors and poison masters. It was just that although the Yu clan and the Long clan were connected by marriage previously, and although the Yu clan taught the Long clan's disciples more content, they didn't put in the effort to teach the exquisite parts. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang was teaching them all by herself in Limitless Palace, many of the Long clan's disciples wanted to learn from Bailey Hongzhuang. After knowing this, Bailey Hongzhuang naturally did not object. In addition, the Long clan and Limitless Palace's relationship was very close. Everything was very simple. After getting her revenge, Bailey Hongzhuang's days were peaceful and happy. Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang were inseparable. Their married life was much sweeter than before. From time to time, Di Beichen would bring Bailey Hongzhuang out to travel. They were really living the life of an immortal couple. The only thing that Bailey Hongzhuang was dissatisfied with was that Di Beichen's cursed body was still missing 2 ingredients. She had already sent people to inquire about it, but there was still no news. Although the Amethyst Dragon Emperor Ginseng and the Tears of Frigid Flame are very rare and precious ingredients, it shouldn't be to the extent that the entire Xingxian continent doesn't have them, right? Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. As long as Di Beichen's cursed body was not solved, it would be a ticking time bomb. Sooner or later it would explode. Master, no matter if it's Tiangang Sect, Limitless Palace, Sun Moon Palace or the Long clan, they are all looking for these 2 ingredients. The other forces also know about this. Logically speaking, if the other forces have these ingredients, they should be willing to do us a favor. There's no news for so long. Could it be that these 2 ingredients are already extinct? Xiaohei sighed. Although their master seemed to be very happy during this period of time, they all knew that their master had been worried about this problem. It was just that she had never shown it in front of Di Beichen. Upon hearing Xiaohei's words, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but reveal a deep sense of worry in her eyes. Logically speaking, that shouldn't be the case. There was a hint of hesitation in her light and pleasant voice. There had been no news for so long. Even Bailey Hongzhuang herself was unsure. If these 2 medicinal herbs really didn't exist anymore, that was something she couldn't accept. After experiencing so many things, now the bitterness was finally over. With Di Beichen by her side, such a day was a happiness she had never enjoyed before. She couldn't imagine what would happen if Beichen's health problems couldn't be solved. These two herbs are so rare that the other factions might not have noticed them. Just because there's no news now doesn't mean there won't be any news in the future. Master, don't worry too much. Baisher could not help but comfort her. I hope so, Bailey Hongzhuang mumbled to herself. In her mind, she was thinking that if she still couldn't get any news, she would have to think of a way to find them herself. Otherwise, if she continued to wait like this, it would be too late once the time was up. When Beichen walked into the room, he saw Bailey Hongzhuang standing by the window sill with a pensive look on her face. He slowly walked behind Bailey Hongzhuang and wrapped his arms around Bailey Hongzhuang's slender waist, pulling her into his arms. Chapter 2890. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't turn her head when she sensed Beichen's aura. Instead, she leaned into Beichen's embrace, and a sweet smile appeared on her exquisite jade-like face. Nothing much. I just feel that I've been living a very comfortable life recently. I hope that it will always be like this in the future. Beichen played with Bailey Hongzhuang's jade-like hands. Wife, I can tell that you have something on your mind recently. Why don't you tell me about it? Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang had been together for so long. How could he not understand Bailey Hongzhuang's personality? When they had just gotten married, Bailey Hongzhuang was indeed very happy every day, and was immersed in happiness. However, he could sense that Bailey Hongzhuang's mood had obviously changed a little. It was just that she didn't show it in front of him. Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly startled when she heard Beichen's words. She had disguised herself very well in the future, but she didn't expect that she still couldn't hide it from Beichen. She slowly turned around and stared at Beichen with her pitch-black eyes. She quietly wrapped her arms around Beichen's back and side. Her beautiful face was pressed against Beichen's chest, and she could feel Beichen's strong and powerful heartbeat. Beichen, I've been living a very happy life recently, Bailey Hongzhuang murmured. It's just that the problem with your constitution hasn't been solved. With Beichen's intelligence and wisdom, since he could see that she had something on her mind, he should be able to guess the specific situation. There was no need to hide it anymore. Beichen stroked Bailey Hongzhuang's silky black hair. I've made you worry. I've already spread the news, but there hasn't been any news about these two herbs. If this continues, it won't be good for you. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with worry. She could only suppress this cursed body within a certain range. Once she went beyond this range, the problem would become much more complicated. Don't worry, we'll definitely find them. Beichen hugged Bailey Hongzhuang tightly. He could feel Bailey Hongzhuang's worry and fear. Bailey Hongzhuang's deep feelings for him. It seems that we've searched all the possible places. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was gloomy. This whole time, she had been comforting herself, but as time went by, she couldn't even comfort herself anymore. There's always a way out. We've gone through so many twists and turns in the past. We'll definitely be able to find these two herbs. Beichen gently patted Bailey Hongzhuang. His voice was extremely gentle. The Cloud Sword sect also has many treasures. I'll get Xiren to search their treasure vault and see if they have these two herbs. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. No matter what method it was, they had to try it. A complicated light flashed across Beichen's dark and deep eyes. He felt very helpless about his own physique. Until now, he only knew that he had such a strange physique. If Bailey Hongzhuang hadn't come into contact with the cursed body in her past life, he probably wouldn't have known what was going on in this lifetime. It wasn't easy for him to be able to walk together with Bailey Hongzhuang. He absolutely didn't want to hurt Bailey Hongzhuang because of something like this. He must find these herbs. Chapter 2891. On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang was teaching her disciples in the poison hall. Suddenly, Nangong Wu came to the poison hall. Just looking at Nangong Wu's ugly expression, Bailey Hongzhuang knew that something must have happened. She immediately walked out of the hall. Hongzhuang, it's not good. Beichen suddenly fainted. Nangong Wu's face revealed a bit of panic. Beichen was chatting happily with Yulinfeng. She didn't expect that he would suddenly faint. No matter how they shouted, there was no response. Hearing Nangong Wu's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression changed. In the next second, she immediately ran in the direction of the palace. Nangong Wu also followed closely behind Bailey Hongzhuang. The thing she was most worried about had happened. He suddenly fainted. It must be that the cursed physique was starting to lose control. However, the speed of the outbreak was much faster than she imagined. When Bailey Hongzhuang arrived at the palace, she saw that Di Beichen was unconscious. She quickly took Di Beichen's pulse. Her expression was heavy and full of worry. Nangong Wu and Yu Linfeng quietly guarded by the side. They vaguely had some expectations in their hearts. Previously, when Bailey Hongzhuang asked them to spread the news to find the Amethyst Dragon Emperor Ginseng and the Tears of Frostfire, they deliberately asked Di Beichen. It turned out that there was a problem with Di Beichen's physique. A moment later, Bailey Hongzhuang put Di Beichen's hand back under the blanket. The grave expression on her face became more and more intense. Hongzhuang, how is Beichen's situation? Nangong Wu couldn't help but ask. Yu Linfeng also said, is it because of the problem with his physique? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. His cursed body seems to be even purer than I thought, so the speed of the outbreak is faster than I thought. As soon as he said that, Nangong Wu and Yu Linfeng looked at each other, and the worry on their faces deepened. So the situation is getting worse? Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. She nodded and then shook her head. This is a double-edged sword. If this cursed body is not resolved, Beichen's situation will only worsen. On the other hand, if Beichen's cursed physique turned into a Heaven's Will physique, then the purer his cursed physique would be, the more powerful his cultivation talents would be. He would be a true genius. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to find those 2 medicinal herbs. I just don't understand. Are these 2 medicinal herbs so rare that they can't be found even after searching the entire Xingxian continent? Nangong Wu couldn't hide the annoyance on her face. She clearly knew the solution, but she didn't have the medicinal herbs. This was too depressing. Moreover, judging from Di Beichen's situation, she was afraid that this wouldn't be able to delay it for long. Hongzhuang, what about Beichen now? Can he still wake up? Yu Linfeng's face was solemn. Di Beichen had stayed in the Tiangang sect for such a long time that Yu Linfeng also treated Di Beichen as his own junior. Now that he saw Di Beichen in such a state, he felt very uncomfortable in his heart. The situation now is a little complicated. It won't be easy to wake Beichen up. I have to think about it. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang only felt that her emotions were incomparably flustered. Even when she wanted to take revenge, she had never been so flustered and afraid. Di Beichen's fainting had tightened the string in her heart. This kind of worry and fear was not something that others could understand. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.